you keep breaking barriers, at some point they're going to break your head. So like as a comedian, I'm like, well, like, let's see who breaks what faster.
Well, hopefully barriers. Hi, everyone. Today we're excited to welcome Neelab Saarabi, a stand-up comedian, writer, and social activist. Beyond her comedy, Neelab is also a successful figure in the marketing world with features on The Today Show, Teen People's Magazine, Elle Girl, and The Wired. Despite her achievements, Neelab couldn't ignore the injustices faced by women in Afghanistan, and she's using comedy as a tool to raise awareness and open ears to their hardships. Let's dive into her journey. Hi, Neelab. It's great to see you.
Hi, Dana. Thank you for having me.
Of course. To start, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your background, including your experiences as a refugee and your journey to becoming a stand-up comedian?
Absolutely. That's actually a pretty good book at some point. But yeah, I was born in Afghanistan, and when I was 10 years old, my family had to move from Afghanistan to Pakistan, and I lived as a refugee in Pakistan for about 7 years. And then I ended up in the United States. And when I came to the US, the first few years, I was just busy doing what you do when you come to the land of opportunities, looking for all sorts of opportunities. And I ended up, I mean, I was married, so I had two beautiful children. And I ended up going back to school when the timing was right and got a degree in psychology, specifically social psychology. And as I was going through some hardships, personal and some more so as a woman of Afghanistan in the United States, and just being one of the millions of women of Afghanistan, I found that comedy was a good way for me to sort of deal with a lot of the hardships and a lot of the heartbreaks. So at one point, with the encouragement, a lot of encouragement from my friends, I decided to just take that route and dive into stand-up comedy, sort of more as a my version of social justice than an actual profession. And it's been a challenging field, but I am pushing forward.
Yeah, I think you're doing amazing.
Thank you.
What specific stories of resistance and resilience have you heard from women in Afghanistan that have particularly moved or inspired you?
Oh my gosh. If there's one thing that keeps me a little bit hopeful for the future of women of Afghanistan, especially those that are in Afghanistan right now, is the resilience of the women there. And there, I don't want to give up just yet. I can't give you a lot of details because of security concerns in Afghanistan, but I do work with a couple of NGOs that provide schooling for girls, and they are still continuing on with education past the sixth grade and through either partnerships with American or international schools. So we do a lot of that. And I see that in the midst of this really dark, the darkest days in the history of women of Afghanistan, at least since I was put on earth. And they are still pushing forward. And just recently, we saw in the Paralympics that a woman from Afghanistan who had just become a refugee and had just gone to France after the Taliban took over Afghanistan again, actually won a bronze medal, the first medal for the refugee team in Paralympics. And that really is just one of the tens or hundreds, maybe thousands of resilient stories that unfortunately we don't get to hear a lot about because they're not covered by media or because of security concerns. We can't really share their stories.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing that with me. In what ways do you think the Taliban's ongoing restrictions on public expression, now from limiting attire to prohibiting women from having their voices heard in public, how does that impact the cultural identity of Afghan women and their sense of self?
That's a very long discussion, and it's just from psychological standpoint, the damages that have been done to the women of Afghanistan in the last 3 years might take generations to repair. because there was a brief period of time when women in Afghanistan got a little bit of fresh air. Afghanistan has traditionally been a very traditional country, so women had barely gotten that opportunity to express themselves freely through media, through choice of occupation, in arts and entertainment, in medicine, in technology, in fashion, and pretty much for the first time in the history of Afghanistan, there was this opportunity for women to be who they really are. Small opportunity, but opportunity nonetheless. And that was snatched from them. And so the psychological effects of that, it could be studied for many, many years. The losing of the sense of self. I hear stories, actually, not just stories, but my own experiences when I was in Pakistan. If I needed to go out of the house, not because my family didn't trust me, but because the tradition actually required so that I would go out with a male figure, even though I would carry that male. He was so much younger that I would carry him in my arms. But as long as there was a man or a male person with me, I would feel like I'm protected. So that kind of psychological effect on somebody to always feel unprotected unless you're accompanied by a man, that is not going to, it's going to, the effects of that is going to be felt for generations. And just imagine wanting something so badly and getting it, and then somebody coming and snatching it from your hands. So that really is something that we would have to, it's a very long-term concern and a long-term problem that needs very long-term solution for it.
Yes. And I can't imagine how challenging that must have been for you to navigate through that. And I think you're very inspiring. Sorry.
Thank you.
As a stand-up comedian, you've created a unique space for yourself in a field that's rare for women from Afghanistan. How do the Taliban's restrictions on public expression for women, sorry, how do such as bans as, sorry.
Good thing we're alive.
Let me try again.
Sure.
As a stand-up comedian, you've created a unique space for yourself in a field that's rare for women from Afghanistan. How do the Taliban's restrictions on female public expression, such as bans on singing in public or reading out loud, impact this space and your work?
I really don't think much about that anymore, because even before the Taliban, just as I mentioned earlier, Afghanistan is a very traditional country, and female comics, even in the United States, have a very hard time being taken seriously. We're comics, but we want to be taken seriously. So with the Taliban, being a woman from Afghanistan, and Afghanistan has a government like the Taliban, stand-up comedy has no chance. I mean, they are denying women the basic right to get education past sixth grade. So for me to really request them, to really expect that the Taliban might actually give me a platform to be a stand-up comedian, it's absolutely, I can't even think of even having that type of an expectation. Women are completely banned from any kind of arts of expression. So whether it's music, whether it's acting, women don't exist anywhere in the entertainment industry. So stand-up comedy, the redhead stepchild of entertainment industry anywhere in the world. In Afghanistan, we are not the redhead stepchild. We're the illegitimate child that should not be even considered a kid, according to the Taliban. So unfortunately for me, I don't see myself ever being in a place in Afghanistan when Afghanistan is, the government of Afghanistan is a Taliban. And with that type of mentality, I don't ever see myself performing on any stages there anytime soon.
I understand. So how do you feel about the impact of the Taliban's education restrictions on young women? And how do you think these restrictions shape their sense of hope and ambition?
As I mentioned earlier, if it wasn't for the hope and ambition of women that is home grown, I would have lost completely all hopes for Afghanistan, because there isn't anything that's being done in Afghanistan right now. Afghanistan is not in the media anymore. Women are not covered anymore. Their stripes are not covered anymore. So anything, even one little step that is being taken in Afghanistan by just going to an underground school, for example, that is a story of resilience, and they're doing it, and they're doing it in Afghanistan. So it, on the one hand, it's very hopeful, and it also, you would think, psychologically speaking, it would actually make people stronger because you see a challenge and you overcome it. But also, on the other hand, having to see those challenges, especially for kids that are in sixth grade, what are they, like 14 and at sixth grade, 13, 14 years old, to actually have to go through all of those challenges, it could be very, very exhausting. And the women of Afghanistan, they need as much support as we possibly can offer them, either through financial needs, to giving them access to the rest of the world, or to just becoming their voice and just talking about them, so that they are not completely, they don't completely disappear in the world and just completely fall off of every single news outlet out there.
I agree. I think that's why it's so important and necessary to keep raising awareness and talking about this, even though it is difficult. So I really
Absolutely.
appreciate you for doing this.
Of course. Thank you. I appreciate the platform that Women's Voices now offers to a lot of women in a lot of different countries. I mean, granted, Afghanistan's challenges are very unique, and I don't know of any other place with such harsh restrictions on women. But women in most conservative cultures face the same problems. So it's amazing to have a platform that you could express yourself, and that your voices, even if you're somebody in Afghanistan and you don't have access to this platform, that you're providing that opportunity for other women like myself to come and speak on their behalf.
Of course. Just a few more quick questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, how do the restrictions that the Taliban has placed on women, how has this affected the space that you choose to create for other women?
To be honest with you, it's discouraging, but at the same time, there is a need for it even more so now than there was before. To whereas a few years ago, I was working with a couple of girls in Dashabarchi, which is a suburb, a village, kind of like outskirts of Kabul, Afghanistan. I was teaching people how to perform comedy or how to write jokes and get quick comebacks and things like that through WhatsApp. Nothing official, but just people who would have reached out to me, and it was just heartwarming. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I started this thing in Afghanistan, and there's going to be other women that are going to come in, and they're going to be so much better at it. They'll have more practice and all of that. And now all of a sudden, it's all gone. And so I feel even more. There's the one aspect of it, the disappointment that comes along with that, but also the added responsibility of like, okay, so there's no one else to pick up this, so you kind of have to do it, whether or not it's convenient, whether or not it's fun anymore. So I have been very selective in performances and where I perform, because another aspect of it is, even though I don't live in Afghanistan, the danger to women like me is actually heightened here even here in the United States, because of certain, like, there are people that have come here recently that are not, they don't like women in media. They are still, they have come here with their ideologies. They packed up their ideologies with them and came to the United States. So I have had very close calls at some of my shows where people have come up and they have started threatening. So I have to change my tactics and choose my audiences very wisely and make sure that I don't put myself in any kind of unnecessary danger. And that is the part that really hurts me, because even though I don't live in Afghanistan, but as a woman that was born in Afghanistan, that identity and that still carries here. So if I start speaking Farsi or start performing in Farsi and people know that I'm from Afghanistan, they automatically react to it. Whereas when I perform in English and I don't, my not that it has never, but there are parts of jokes that is not about my identity as a woman from Afghanistan. So those are funny, but as soon as people find out, oh, she's a funny woman, but she's from Afghanistan, now I'm automatically in a different category. And so it has been very challenging and discouraging, but at the same time, there is also more need for me to even push for harder and go further with this.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that you've had to go through that, but I think it's extremely commendable that you're still breaking barriers and making like you're gonna have your voice heard no matter what.
I hope so. You know, like you keep breaking barriers, at some point they're gonna break your head. So, like as a comedian, I'm like, well, like let's see who breaks what faster.
Well, hopefully, barriers.
I'm trying to joke, no matter how serious everything is. I'm a comedian, so.
um, do you believe we're seeing a complete rollback of progress for women in Afghanistan? I know I've read some studies that they've calculated it to be like 20 years of progress has been undone. And
Absolutely.
What gives you hope for the future, knowing this?
Very little hope that I have. All of those are on the shoulders of the women in Afghanistan who are fighting for just even one little online course that they can take, and just one little a laptop that somebody actually delivers to them to where they can connect with the rest of the world. But everything, if anything, if there's ever any progress in Afghanistan, it's the women of Afghanistan that made it happen. Those who live in Afghanistan and who fight for it every day. And as much as I would love to be their voice, there's nothing I can say to truly tell you how much stronger they are.
Sorry.
And
it's okay. Take your time.
and it's not that I feel sorry, or I'm proud of them. I'm proud of every story that comes out of Afghanistan, the story of success, the women that somehow get out of Afghanistan, go to a country that's a little bit safer, and then they shine. They bring medals, they win scholarships, they invent medical equipment that nobody else had thought of. And I think that everybody knows that the women are the world. We manage the world. However, in Afghanistan, that is very much the case now, because even in many cases where men chose to or had to flee Afghanistan as the Taliban took over, there are a lot of women who are becoming breadwinners or the sole caregivers for their families. And so I just want to make sure that when we talk about resistance for women of Afghanistan and their fight, it isn't just about the fight for big things. Big in Afghanistan is higher education and things like that. But I'm talking about things that they do on a daily basis. The women that have no caregivers and they stay up all night, watch over their kids or their families so that an intruder doesn't come and hurt them. Those are the types of fight that they're fighting every day. And they are fighting it, and some survive it and some don't. And I feel very, very proud of them. And I hope that I can't make any promises, because I honestly don't know where we are right now in the United States, in the politics, in the international politics overall. Women of Afghanistan don't have that degree of importance anymore, that or even all people of Afghanistan, especially the women of Afghanistan. So making empty promises is not something that I would like to do. However, I do want to say that I am very, very proud of every single person, every single woman that is making it from dawn to dusk every day, and they're fighting for their future. And I will do whatever I can to do the same for them.
It's amazing. I'm sorry, I got a little emotional. I'm trying not to cry too.
I know.
That was amazing. I think it's truly so important that we keep sharing these stories. I know a lot of women don't have, like you said, the access to use their voice the way that they'd like to. But I truly hope that by doing this and by keep talking about this and raising awareness some kind of way, it will draw the right people, the right eyes to, sorry, take initiative to help them. Sorry. My last question is, what steps do you think are necessary to achieve that vision?
One thing that we're doing is giving voice to the women of Afghanistan to whatever platforms that we can, whether it's, we have to fight this war on many different fronts. We have to fight it through social media. We have to fight it through arts and entertainment. We have to fight it through politics. We have to fight it through education system, through health system, because every single thing that has anything to do with a woman's well-being in Afghanistan right now is in danger. So talking about that, giving that, having that platform to talk about it, that's the first thing that is that we're already doing. And then aside from that, just a little step beyond that is, how do we become, what kind of steps do we take to have more of a policy influence on our own government here in the United States, so that when the aid packages that are still being sent to Afghanistan, that they're not unconditional. And the biggest condition on that is the women's right to education, the women's right to careers, the women's right to at least have a decent job that they can make a living. And I think that's that, just that by itself. I'm not a politician, I'm not a lobbyist, at least not just yet, but that in itself is to have that policy change to where aid to the government of Taliban is really conditioned upon certain very black and white rules as it comes to women. That needs to be really pushed for through our representatives, state representatives. We have elections coming up. There's a lot of things we could do as American taxpayers and voters, that there are a lot of steps that we could take on that front as well.
I agree. And something you said was, it really stood out to me. I realized that we do focus so much on the political aspect, but it is important to see women from Afghanistan in other fields. I think that definitely goes overlooked.
Absolutely. I think that when we run campaigns of more of like a public relations campaign, to where we talk about the women of Afghanistan to women in the United States, to housewives, to doctors, to teachers, to astronauts, whatever field, because we're lucky, we have access to pretty much anything, any profession. When we talk to these women, these are voters. They're the ones that it's going to have a long-term impact. But unfortunately, in the last couple of years, the first year that Taliban took over Afghanistan, when I talked to people about, oh, I'm from Afghanistan, they would know because it was in the news. At least they would know what's going on in Afghanistan. It's almost to a point where people have forgotten. And that's when we talk about women don't have rights to education in Afghanistan, they can't study past sixth grade. It just kind of sounds as if we're talking about some kind of a story from a different planet. It doesn't resonate with them. They feel, sometimes I have even been asked questions, are you exaggerating? They feel like there's like some dramatization and because they think everything is politics. But I think just talking about the women of Afghanistan to just regular, ordinary, everyday women here, so that they're well educated and well informed about what's going on in Afghanistan, so that when they are in turn they can make, when they go to the cast their ballots, when they're involved in their community politics and all of that, that it's in the back, at least it's something that's in the back of their mind, and they can talk about that as well. So yeah, I mean, lobbyists and politicians, they're there are very few of those, but there's half of our population are women, and they all care about education and healthcare. And I think that's who we should talk to.
I agree. I hope that by sharing their stories, maybe like you said, it will draw empathy from them, and
Absolutely.
that will cause them to advocate for them. I really hope so.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking this opportunity to. I know that you're featuring women from Afghanistan this entire week. So I will be sharing all of that on social media. I'll be making as much of the contribution as I possibly can through your platform. And I really appreciate you providing this platform for us.
Thank you so much, Neelab. I really appreciate the time you've taken today to share
Of
your
course.
story with us.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you.